During the brutal winters of the Second World War winters, so cold they froze rifle bolts solid and turned men's breath into ice, soldiers learned a harsh truth that rarely appears in history books. It wasn't always bullets that claimed lives. More often, it was the cold. In snow-choked forests, frozen foxholes, and wind-blasted ridgelines, standard military gear simply wasn't enough. Wool blankets stiffened with frost. Heavy coats became rigid boards. In places like the Ardennes, the Alpine Front, and the deadly Eastern Front, temperatures plunged so low that even battle-hardened troops struggled to function. Yet hidden deep within supply lists, forgotten pilot equipment. And field improvisations was a surprisingly small piece of gear that quietly saved countless soldiers. A lightweight jacket, insert thin, compact, and deceptively simple, that kept troops warmer than thick wool blankets and performed almost impossibly well in wet, freezing conditions. Today, hardly anyone realizes how advanced it really was, or that it can still be recreated using basic materials. Wool had been the military's trusted insulator for centuries, and it certainly provided warmth. But in real frontline conditions, wool had a fatal flaw. It absorbed moisture. Sweat, breath, melting snow, and rising ground frost all soaked into the fibers. Once damp, wool grew heavy, lost a large portion of its insulating ability, and froze into stiff, icy slabs that sucked warmth from the body. Soldiers often woke up shivering inside blankets that had turned rock hard overnight. The Winter War wasn't just a struggle for warmth, it was a struggle against moisture. And wool, despite its reputation, couldn't keep up. This is where the innovative World War II jacket insert made its mark. Unlike wool, the insert's secret wasn't the fabric, it was the air. The insulation was built from thin, layered material designed to trap dozens of tiny pockets of still air. Because still air is the true insulator, not the fabric itself. The layers created an internal microclimate around the body, holding warmth close while allowing moisture to escape outward instead of being absorbed. Even more surprising, the insert didn't begin as infantry equipment. It was originally designed for pilots flying in unheated cockpits at high altitudes where temperatures dropped far below zero. But once infantrymen got their hands on them through trade, scavenging, or field modifications, they quickly realized how dramatically these liners improved endurance in the cold. What made this design so effective is that it unknowingly echoed clothing traditions far older than modern warfare. Indigenous cultures across the Arctic, Scandinavia, and North America relied on layered hides, grasses, feathers, and loose natural fibers to trap warm air without adding unnecessary bulk. Their garments were breathable, moisture-managing, and astonishingly effective in sub-zero environments. World War II engineers, without realizing it, recreated these ancient principles. By stitching multiple thin layers instead of using a single thick slab of wool, the insert prevented heat from escaping while slowing cold air from penetrating inward. The result was insulation that stayed warm, stayed dry, and stayed flexible. Construction of the insert was straightforward but smart. Soldiers used whatever materials were available: cotton shells, muslin, quilted liners, scrap batting, even wool remnants sliced into thin layers. The insulation was stitched into long channels or zigzag patterns so it couldn't shift or bunch up. This kept the warmth evenly distributed and ensured the liner always hugged the torso. Even today, reenactors and survivalists replicate this by sewing batting into simple quilted panels or modifying old jackets with homemade liners. You don't need military equipment to build a high-performance insulator. You just need an outer layer, an inner insulating fill, and stitching to keep everything locked in place. One of the greatest advantages of the World War II insert was its resistance to freezing. Frozen clothing was a silent killer in winter campaigns. Wool coats, once soaked with sweat or snowmelt, could freeze so completely that soldiers struggled to raise their arms or bend their elbows. The insert solved this by allowing internal moisture to pass outward through the breathable layers. Even when snow melted on the outer jacket, the water rarely reached the insulation. Whatever moisture did reach, the inner layers evaporated as body heat moved outward. This meant the insert almost never froze, solid, an enormous advantage when mobility and warmth were crucial for survival. As soldiers tested the insert in the field, they discovered something remarkable. The thin liner often worked better than a wool blanket. A blanket only helps when you're resting, sitting, or sleeping. But a liner works constantly while marching, digging, standing guard, eating, or simply trying to stay alive through another icy night. Because it stayed tight to the core, it prevented the body from losing heat, which meant soldiers didn't waste precious calories generating new warmth. In war zones, where meals were irregular and rations were often inadequate, conserving calories wasn't just useful, it was life-saving. Despite its light weight, the liner was incredibly durable. Soldiers dragged them through mud, slush, rubble, and snow. They repaired them repeatedly with crude stitches. They stuffed them into packs, slept on them, and sometimes even used them as makeshift pillows. Unlike wool, which compresses and wears thin over time, the layered structure of the liner held its shape for months or even years. This durability made it one of the most reliable cold-weather tools of the entire war, especially in campaigns where replacement gear was scarce or non-existent. And the best part, modern survivalists can recreate this gear with simple materials available anywhere. A lightweight cotton or canvas outer shell, several layers of batting or natural fibers, and basic stitching are all you need. Many people sew vertical or zigzag rows to keep the insulation from shifting. Simple ties or snaps allow the liner to be worn under a jacket or wrapped around the torso in camp. This humble approach directly mirrors what World War II soldiers did at remote outposts when supply lines broke down and winter tightened its grip. The final result is a lightweight, rugged, moisture-resistant garment that traps heat efficiently, holds up against daily use, and often outperforms store-bought winter clothing. For cold-weather camping, off-grid living, outdoor work, bushcraft, or historical reenacting. The World War II heat-trapping insert remains one of the smartest, most practical insulation methods ever developed. It proves that survival doesn't always come from technology. It often comes from understanding how the body works, how heat moves, and how simple materials can be arranged in clever ways. If you enjoy uncovering forgotten survival techniques like this, methods that kept real soldiers alive through some of the harshest conditions ever recorded, make sure to subscribe, share this with fellow history enthusiasts, and leave a comment. The world is full of lost fieldcraft and ancient engineering waiting to be rediscovered.